Jai Hind, this is Brigadier Hemant Mahajan who welcomes you for a Facebook Live on a subject maritime or naval aspects of Russia-Ukraine war. I repeat, maritime oblique naval aspects of Russia-Ukraine war. The Ukraine war is one of the most televised war in the recent history. It is also the most analyzed war. However, the maritime aspects, the air aspects have not been discussed too much in the various articles or various analysis that has occurred in the media. So in this particular presentation, we will talk about the maritime aspect as to what exactly is happening. What we must understand is that Ukraine has a coastline of about 2,700 kilometers, and the coastline, the sea next to it is Black Sea, or also called as of Sea of Azov. Basically, it's a Black Sea, and there are 5 other nations which are a part of the Black Sea, including Russia. Now, what we must understand is Black Sea has 2 straits which ultimately join the Mediterranean Sea. I repeat, there are 2 straits, 2 narrow points from where the Black Sea meets the Mediterranean Sea. These are the straits of Bosphorus and Dardanelles, and these states are actually under the control of Turkestan or Turkey, and as per an old agreement, no warship is required to pass from this sea. Now, before we talk about the naval war or the maritime aspects of the Ukraine war, we must understand as to who were the opposing forces. Of course, as far as the Russian Navy is concerned, it's a very strong navy and it has its fleet in 4 different seas. So therefore, it concentrated required number of ships before the start of the war in the Black Sea. As far as the Ukrainian Navy is concerned, it's a small navy with small ships which are basically for the protection of coastline. So their offensive potential is very limited, and they focus more on defending themselves. However, they have used missiles, they have used mines, etc. in a big way and have been successful in sinking few ships. So as far as the naval war is concerned, it has received very little attention in the media. Of course, exceptions are that they talked about Snake Island, in which 12 or 13 Ukrainian defenders did not surrender to the Russian forces which had attacked them. But later that was proved wrong. And of course, there have been reports that the Russian ships have been shelling various cities located on the Black Sea. The lion's share of analysis of Ukraine war has basically gone to the armed forces operation in Ukraine, which now has shifted, which is stalled now in northern part of Ukraine and has now shifted to the eastern part. So the Ukraine coastline is about 2,700 kilometers. It has 2 seas, one Black Sea, and of course second call it a Sea of Azov. So on 14th of April, what happened was that Moskva, I repeat, Moskva, which is the flagship of Russia's Black Fleet, it sank off the coast of Ukraine in the Black Sea. The Russians said the ship sank because there was an accident on the ship, while the Ukrainians claim that the ship sank because it was hit by a missile that was fired by the Ukrainian. Now, whether Ukrainian version is true or the Russian version is true, however, the Americans have supported the Russian theory, the Ukrainian theory, in which they said that the ship was sunk by a missile called Neptune. Now, loss of Moskva is actually a big psychological blow as far as Russia is concerned. Since the control of those 2 straits that I spoke about, the Strait of Dardanelles and the Bosphorus Strait, so therefore it is not possible now for Russia to get its replacement from elsewhere, because the access is controlled by Turkey under the agreement which was signed long time back, which limits the transit during wartime through these two straits. So therefore, they cannot get any replacement as far as their navy is concerned. So this basically puts the Russians at a big disadvantage. What one would remember is when the war was about to start, the Russians, what they did, they concentrated all their elements, all their naval elements in this area, and they have built up a strength which was adequate. Now, as far as the loss of an important surface naval ship is concerned to a cruise missile, it starts a debate whether big battleships are susceptible to being fired upon by the missiles. How do they protect themselves when a large number of missiles is fired, and can a large aircraft carrier remain safe from the hypersonic missiles or the cruise missiles? And this debate is also relevant to the Indian armed forces. As far as Russia was concerned, its fleet are there in 4 separate places. It deployed its fleet, the naval fleet, in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Now, Eastern Mediterranean is an area where they were deployed just to ensure that the NATO Navy did not cross through from the Mediterranean into the Black Sea to contest the Black Sea, and that aim they have achieved. As far as the Russian Navy was concerned, its task was to support all the strategic objectives which Shri Putin wanted to achieve. That is, what does it include? It includes the supply of ground troops. It includes precision fire to support military operations along the coastline, also deep inside. It also includes maintaining sea control and maritime passage for the concerned parties. Before the hostilities began, Russian Navy concentrated a powerful task force. They had many ships, like they had 6 landing ship tanks which came there. Now, what is landing ship tank? Landing ship tank is basically a ship which is used for carrying out amphibious operations. So it was a clear signal that Russia would use these ships, landing ship tanks, etc., for carrying out amphibious landing on the coastline of Ukraine and capture the cities. But that a bigger landing of a amphibious force did not take place. However, small actions did take place. Black Sea is actually the primary naval theater of the war as far as the maritime domain is concerned, and Russia is exercising an effective sea control as far as the Black Sea is concerned. The Russian Navy has blockaded all the Ukrainian ports, and it controls the complete Sea of Azov and also the complete coastline. Possibly it may not have captured cities like Mariupol, etc., which there are reports that that city may have fallen now, but the fact is that the Ukrainians cannot get any resupply from the sea. They cannot carry out any evacuation from the sea. Their actions are limited to defensive actions. So therefore, Russians have been very successful as far as the naval blockade is concerned. As far as the Ukrainian Navy is concerned, it's a navy whose strength is 6,500 personnel. It has 2 landing craft, 1 minesweeper, 9 patrol boats, 4 security ships, 91 RIB boats, 44 auxiliary vessels, 23 plus aircraft. Basically, it's a defensive force, and it was also used to carry out sneak raids on Russian Navy. Now, let's look at the operations which took place on the sea. In the opening stages, the Russian Navy basically sank some ships which were merchant ships which were at anchor at various Ukrainian ports, and thereafter the complete merchant traffic there is passed. Now, they sank a ship of Estonia, which is a NATO member, but it was an extremely provocative action, but the NATO did not respond to it. So thereafter, Russia established an effective blockade of the Ukrainian Black Sea coast, and Turkey ensured that nobody else came inside, especially the American fleet or the European fleet. It is believed that Russian Navy has used 12 to 24 ships in the Black Sea since the start of the invasion, and all of them, their size is of the same as Moskva, the ship that was sunk. the Russian Navy is played a very minor role as far as the present war is concerned. It is basically being used in addition to the coastal domination for additional source of cruise missiles to launch attacks on targets in Ukraine. As far as Moskva was concerned, it did not have any ship. They wanted to use the ships for sea lift, which was hardly done. They wanted to stop trade, which was definitely done. So therefore, the Russian naval operations were reasonably successful. The commercial ships which were hit by Russian weapons ultimately decided not to go there. So therefore, the Russian Navy was successful as far as these operations were concerned. They carried out several amphibious feints, etc., in the direction of Odessa and other places, but they did not actually carry out an amphibious landing. However, what we must understand is that Russia has lost a number of their landing ship tanks which were berthed alongside the coastline to various missiles fired by the Ukrainians. Now, Ukrainians carried out sneak attacks and sank a few ships of the Russians. Thereafter, Russians moved away from the coastline. So, as far as the future of maritime operation is concerned, it is felt that possibly Russian fleet will be ready to launch an amphibious assault on Odessa, which is the most important port in the occupation of Ukraine. And if that is blockaded, if that is captured, then there will be absolutely be no economic activity that can be carried out by Ukraine from the sea. Now, when we look at all these activities, the most important part is what is out of this which is important for India. Now, technological advances in surveillance with networked missiles based on air, land and sea has increased the vulnerability of big ships for firing by various types of missiles, and the accuracy is increased tremendously by using global positioning systems, by laser guidance, by inertial navigation systems, etc. And these mobile platforms, be it land-based, sea-based or air-based, they are extremely mobile and they can easily take on a ship which moves much slowly. So therefore, what is happening is that large ships remain vulnerable to missile attacks, be it cruise, be it long-range missiles, be it let's say intercontinental missiles, be it hypersonic missiles, and they are an easy target as far as these big ships are concerned. So what lesson do we draw from here? Does it mean that big ships, aircraft carriers have no role? Well, today if you look at what other countries are doing, other countries like China, Russia, USA are busy in developing ballistic missiles like Calibar or Tomahawk, etc. As far as India is concerned, we are geographically very well placed and we are a peninsular country. We have a coastline of about 7,600 kilometers. So as far as domination of our sea, be it Arabian Sea, be it Bay of Bengal, be it Indian Ocean or be it Indo-Pacific, we have a huge coastline from where missile batteries can be kept on the coastline or they can be kept on the island territories of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and also on Lakshadweep Islands, also on our eastern coast and western coast, also on our southern tips of let's say Kerala, Tamil Nadu, etc. And we can reach very long in every ocean which is possible. So developing long range missiles for dominating the seas around us is a very important solution that we have, and these missiles should be a combination of cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, etc. And as far as India is concerned, its BrahMos missile, which it has co-developed with Russia, currently is a mainstay as far as our indigenous cruise missile capability is concerned, and it can be used from land, from sea, from air platform. It's an all-round missile which has proved its capability, and in fact the foreign countries are asking for it. Especially Philippines has concluded a big agreement with us as far as supply of BrahMos is concerned. So we should have to prioritize our expenditure, prioritize our weapon system, and spend more time on developing cruise missiles and their batteries so they can be developed at various places along the coastline. As far as big battleships are concerned, in the days to come, they are developing anti-missile defense system, etc. But they are very costly. It is not very easy as far as defending themselves is concerned. But maybe big battleships over a period of time will get replaced by smaller ships which are more agile, which are more mobile. So what we really require is a combination of big battleships, small battleships, missile batteries of cruise missiles, missile batteries of ballistic missiles, missiles that can be fired from air, etc. So therefore a balanced mix is what will meet the Indian conditions. As far as Ukrainians are concerned, they have exploited the vulnerabilities of Russian weapon system with the help of assistance from USA and NATO. And one important thing that I want to talk about is, while Ukrainians fired the missiles, but the surveillance or the acquisition of target was done for them by the United States, and very accurately they were able to nullify lot of assets of the Russian Navy. So similarly, we have to develop our surveillance, we have to develop our target tracking ability by various means, including satellite, including many other means, so that our accuracy of engagement increases. As it appears that Russia had not made adequate effort to get intelligence about the Ukrainian Navy, their weapons, their staying power, their tactics, their capability to fight war, etc. And they thought they used Crimea as a template. When the Russian tanks went inside, the Crimeans just gave up. So this proved to be a complete failure as far as conventional war is concerned. They have not been able to carry out any amphibious landing. Their ships could have done much better. What possibly is another issue is that the command and control as far as the Russian armed forces was concerned was not up to the mark. So unified military command, the conduct of joint operations, etc. by various services were not done properly. So we therefore need to analyze the command and control of Russian maritime forces and draw adequate lessons as far as India is concerned. So this war actually provides us a running commentary, let's say running kind of a analysis, running complete information from various sources that comes to us, and it is helps us to understand as to how effective have been the Russian maritime platforms, how effective have been their submarines, what exact tasks various missiles carried out, and therefore we can apply correction factors and learn from the various blunders, various mistakes which the Russian Navy made, and the fighting spirit shown by the Ukrainians. I'll stop here. If you like this video, share it with as many people as possible. Thank you and Jai Hind.